The government's new apprenticeship levy comes into force this week. It's a tax on businesses to pay for training young people.
The scheme, though, has been criticised as unfocused by a group of MPs. Ben is having a look at it for us. Morning.
Morning to you both. Thanks very much. Yes, you may remember this was announced by George Osborne, the former Chancellor, back in 2015, and it was planning to raise about £2.5 billion for training. Now, all larger businesses have to pay into a centralised fund every month, and then those firms can apply for funding to train their apprentices. It will affect around 22,000 businesses in the UK.
The levy will mean that we'll be able to spend by 2020 £2.5 billion on apprenticeships, not just apprenticeships for big business, but supporting small businesses up and down the land so that they can hire apprentices and apprenticeships can get those opportunities that they deserve.
Well, one group that's concerned about the impact of the fund is the think tank, the IPPR, and with me now is their policy advisor, Joe Dromey. Joe, good morning.
Morning.
So on one hand, you say good news, money being put in for apprentices, and of course we know that practical skills are desperately needed, but you don't think the scheme is quite right?
No, I think it's worth saying first that we do welcome the introduction of the apprenticeship levy, and it's a recognition by the government, long overdue, that more needs to be done to boost employer investment in skills for the benefit of learners, for employers and the economy too. But we do have some concerns about the exact way in which the apprenticeship levy will be implemented, particularly the focus on quantity over quality and the fact that it won't necessarily address the deep regional inequalities that scar our country.
There's a challenge too about apprenticeships that for a whole generation, my generation included, apprenticeships were a dirty word. They were a thing that you did if you couldn't get the grades to get to university. That has now changed. Yeah. But is there still an image issue with apprenticeships?
I think so, yeah, and I think this is largely as a result of previous Labour governments, the last Labour government in particular, which had a very strong focus on increasing the number of young people going to university, which was really important and achieved some very impressive results there. But much less attention was paid to the other route, so to the 50% plus who don't go to university, and to equipping them with the vocational skills that they need to succeed in the economy. So it's great to have a bit more of a focus on apprenticeships, but we think that focusing on boosting the numbers solely, the government hitting their 3 million target seems to be their main aim, might actually devalue the apprenticeship brand, because the apprenticeships that we may see won't necessarily be the quality and what you would expect from an apprenticeship.
So some focus on raising the money to pay for these apprenticeships, but it also would make the north-south divide bigger, you believe. How does that work?
Yes, well, the apprenticeship levy only affects very large employers with a payroll of £3 million or more. And in London and the South East, there's both a greater proportion of large employers and, on average, higher pay. So this means the levy will raise more money in London and the South East, and we believe will stimulate training there more. Arguably, it's needed there less, because actually levels of qualification, productivity and indeed pay are far higher in London and the South East. So we think more needs to be done to boost skills and productivity and pay in the rest of the country, and that's why we're calling for a skills levy, which would be top sliced and some of that money devolved to local areas to invest in the vocational training that their economy needs.
So difficult to get it right, isn't it? Joe, it's really good to talk to you. Thanks so much. Joe Dromey there from the IPPR.